must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
To you, and thank you so much for joining us. This is Diplomatic Clicks, and our topic this morning is on the developing story in Sudan. We shall base our story on that, and coups in Africa. Who is the beneficiary with the military coups have become a regular occurrence here in the continent. And of course, as we speak, there has been reports that there have been a coup in Sudan again, and the whereabouts of Sudan's Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok are not known. He's been moved to a non-location. So that is the latest there from Sudan. My name is Miriam Mugutu, and welcome to the show. And of course, joining us from the Political Command Center is Dr. David Matanga. Dr. good morning to you.
Good morning, my people. Good morning, all of you, wherever you are across the continent of Africa. This is Punchline Africa Television, the only one that keeps on telling the people the truth. And the truth, but nothing but the truth. Because here in Punchline Africa Television, you find men who have read the subject up to the core. You find men who have actually reasoned and continue to reason up to the core. We tell the truth. We understand international intelligence systems, how they work. We do understand international relations, how they work. Any student of international relations watching this television must keep a pen and a paper, because the records that we put across here, you can't beat us on that. Good morning, Africa. First, the panel is full of all the people with knowledge. I want to tell you, I want to announce that on Friday, we shall be having Pan-African conference across all the way from London Marriott, moderated by Miriam Ogutu and Samuel Tawish Olesesana. Two of you will be on standby, will be online, will be in the studios in Nairobi, where you will be moderating an international worldwide conference which talks about Africa and globalization. Are we part of globalization, Miriam? Start cracking your heads now. If we are being given leftovers, are you part of globalization? The medicine is leftover. Inabaki wapatie. So good morning, Africa. This is Diplomatic Leaks by Miriam Ogutu and David Matanga. Let's go straight to the subject. Do coups in Africa benefit us? The answer is no. The coups make problems for Africa. But who sponsors these coups? George Soros. And again, every time, every minute, people in Kenya call me. I talk about George Soros. I'm George Soros. Just. You can nickname me anything you want. But I warned you that the leadership of Sudan, the leadership of the people of Sudan, the army and the others are not all right. 20 days ago, I warned the African continent that there is an impending coup in Sudan. How I picked it, don't ask me. I know how I work. But I'm telling you, there is now a coup officially. Miriam was saying the Prime Minister has been arrested, and in fact, a few hours ago, 45 minutes ago, the Prime Minister was taken to a prison. Now I'm giving you news because I'm intact. He's in prison and like the same. You see, when you take your friends to prison, be prepared to be taken. Is he not going to meet Mr. Bashir? He's in prison. I told you, Miriam, when Karim Khan came to Khartoum, do you remember my letter? Bring out the letter. You people don't see the signs, signals, mawingu. Tunaangalia mawingu, sisi watu wa siasa. What do they call them? Miriam have become an expert of Swahili. Last night, uliona nilichoma mtu kwa K24. Uliona? Nilichoma mtu kwa K24. Hawezi kuzungumza. This small boy is also saying they also know politics. Kuja! Don't try a veteran. Kuja! Nilimumaliza. He almost jumped out of his trousers. That he studied politics from Kenyatta University. What? What the hell? You can't beat a man who has experienced political science upheavals, seen them, who has classic theories of Karl Marx in my head from book 1 to last book. You can't say you want to challenge me. Stand up for a challenge. Kiswahili yangu jana ilianza. Naomba nyenye wa Kenya muanze kunifundisha Kiswahili kali sana. Ile ya Miriam. Niendelee. Nataka kukaa lesson Miriam. Spare 1 hour every day, please. My dear sister. Teach me lesson.
Tavish will do a good job with that. He's quite good in Kiswahili.
No, I have chosen you. I have chosen you.
Okay.
I have chosen you, please. Tawish will do another way of spelling and writing. Wewe utasifundisha. Your assignment yako by the end of next year before elections. Na mimi nikuwe fluent speaker. But you come back to the coup. We predicted this coup, Miriam. The Prime Minister was George Soros, working direct with Open Society Foundation, wanting to deliver a president to the ICC. The generals, the soldiers who fought a war in Darfur, remember, are the same one you are going to put on trial. And you proudly bring in Karim Khan and tell him, hey, we are going to take you to Darfur. We are trying to take his machine. Wapi? Ulisikia wapi? Ulisikia wapi? Is he there now? He's actually smelling River Nile under the sea. Well done, the cuckoo guys in Sudan. At least the beginning of salvation is seen now. It's coming. Miriam, a few days ago, a few months ago, while we were in Mombasa, a lady by name Amina Mohammed. You remember that lady who came, Tawish? She told us in the conference that there are several militias in Khartoum. Khartoum. It's not called Khartoum, Khartoum. For the Arab, Khartoum. Not Khartoum. Some of us say Khartoum. The Khartoum. Kwa Arabic. Is coming to do a coup. So many militias, so many people. I told you. I told the viewers on this television station, Walai, that things are going to be bad in Khartoum. The woman was saying, David, intervene. When I saw the ICC chief prosecutor go in Khartoum, I wrote a letter to the presidency of Khartoum and to the world, and that copy is available, Stephen. I said, you are triggering a coup. It has happened. At whose benefit is it? The civilians are the ones who suffer. Development in Africa is retarded. African Union has become a yo-yo-yo-yo. Politics of yo-yo-yo-yo. Voodoo approach towards coups in Africa. Let's just make a decision. that you don't come back. You are given punitive sanctions. You don't fly to any African country. Those are the things we should change in the charter. I recommended those things. Coups would have stopped. But as long as we stay the way we are, coups will come and come. But the beneficiaries are the Western countries that come to meddle in our affairs and create fight for legitimacy of the oil which is underground. I submit.
Very well, thank you, and also for the family members who were interviewed following this coup. For the people who were arrested, they said that for the Prime Minister and other government officials, they refused to be part of this coup, and they were forcing the Prime Minister particularly to come out and issue a statement saying that he's supporting the coup, and the Prime Minister refused. And of course, culminating to what we've seen happen today, there has been some tussle between the military side and the civilian side. As it is, we know that the transitional government is composed of about 13 members there, 5 from the civilian and 6 from the civilian and 5 from the military, and then the others from other opposition groups. And the military has been very strong-handed in the leadership of Sudan, and you've seen high-profile people in the civilian side even resigning in the recent past. So, Doctor, you're right. We've been talking about it. We've been monitoring the situation. And I think maybe a week ago, when we were having the Africa Showdown, the other Sunday, we raised concern of the same, and we said something is to be done in Sudan because things are not okay. Samuel Tawish, are you surprised by this coup now that has happened again in Sudan?
Miriam, indeed, I'm not quite surprised that this is happening in Sudan as we speak. And just like Dr. Masanga usually puts it, that the African people usually have to wait until a white man comes for them to believe that this is the right thing, or this information is true. And I think it has come to the limelight that what is happening in Sudan today is something that we widely anticipated. Dr. Masanga himself has extensively spoken on this. And as long as you've had President Omar al-Bashir having been removed, not in a very civil or ceremonious way from power, really, Miriam, we are going to continue having these problems, and I do not even foresee any truce being, of course, struck anytime soon. Because you understand, Omar al-Bashir has been the president for that republic. He's been there. He has entrenched his ideology amongst the populace in Sudan. And in itself, Miriam, it's something that you cannot just wake up one day and think you can wipe out, or you can institute a coup against President Omar al-Bashir and think you're going to have a field day in Sudan. And that is why you see today, they cannot even agree amongst the civil. Is it a civilian administration they want, or is it a military one, or is it a combination of the two? They can't quite agree on the way forward because they did the wrong thing in the first place. Had they found a way out on a very smooth transition, perhaps we would not be having this problem as we are having today in Sudan, Miriam. But because that is, we have invited foreign agencies to come and bring these coups, to bring turmoil, to bring regime change in the African nations, we have to brace and live with it. These are some of the challenges that we have to live with as African people. But I believe not all is really lost. I hope the African Union and other international agencies now can move in swiftly so that we do not want to see bloodshed. In as much as there is that power tussle as to who or which entity must then take over as the legitimate government of the day in Sudan, we must not do it at the expense of losing people's lives, at the expense of course, shedding blood, at the expense of displacement of course, innocent civilians. That is something that must be curtailed. That is something that must be safeguarded so that the people of Sudan, in as much as they are agitating for a change in their government, in as much as they want a new administration in place, the same must not be done in a way that is going to threaten the life and safety of the people of Sudan. Miriam, I submit.
Okay, thank you. Sharon Gitonga, your reaction to the latest development from Sudan.
Thank you very much, Miriam. And it's quite unfortunate. There's a book I read a while ago and by Francis Imbuga where he examines problems of independence and freedom in past colonial states of Africa. And there's a saying that he said, when the madness of an entire nation disturbs a solitary mind, it is not enough to say that the man is mad. And I feel like for me, this piece has been quite timely because it resonates with the current affairs of many African countries and for me, when I look at what is happening currently is as a result of poor leadership, whereby we have not just even in Sudan, even in all African countries, where we have leaders who are very greedy and actually self-seeking, whereby we see that these are leaders that are actually in on their own, they have their own intent and not for the interest of the people. Leaders who are all about their own families and friends. So I think it's safe to say that Africa is bleeding, and we have actually lost direction, and we need a reset. And when we have lost direction, it doesn't mean that we move by speed. I think direction is actually better than speed. So something needs to happen. We need to take a have a reset so that we have so that we are able to move in cohesion and sustainable and at least an economic stability. I was looking at Kenya, and Kenya I think is an island of peace, and I was actually looking at some audit that say that I think we are the largest economy in Africa, in East and Central Africa. And I think much to this is because we've been able to enjoy peace and stability. So I think something really needs to be done, because if maybe like the AU and other international do not move in haste to ensure that there's actually an intervention, this whole thing is going to spill in the entire Horn of Africa. I've seen what just happened in Uganda, I think 2 days ago, and it's quite unfortunate that I think UK had actually given an alert of the same, but instead, they just started. They just took this for granted. So something really needs to be done, and I think the AU, it's high time they should actually move in haste to ensure that they intervene on humanitarian matters. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So obviously, ICC could be the biggest underlying factor of what has happened and what has transpired there in Sudan. As Dr. mentioned there earlier, ICC, the new chief prosecutor, had already had plans of setting shops in Sudan so that they could start investigating the massacre in Darfur afresh. And we know the people who could be responsible, majority of them are even part of the ruling council right now in Sudan. They aided during that time under President Omar al-Bashir. And we know Omar al-Bashir has been on a warrant of arrest for quite a while now by the ICC, and it appears that it is the civilian side that had agreed that Omar al-Bashir will be handed over to the ICC. But if Omar al-Bashir should be handed over to the ICC, that means all this military junta are coming with him, because they participated largely on what happened back then in Sudan. And so we've been saying, because of this, there's no way they would agree to have Omar al-Bashir be taken to the ICC, because there will be casualties as well. And so what could have been the best way of handling the issue of Darfur and the ICC warrant of arrest over Omar al-Bashir's head, Doc?
East or west, north or south, the cases of ICC on Africa were wrongly investigated. Period. Take it home, deliver it home, have it as a student of international relations. They were wrongly investigated. The case in Darfur, you will not convict anybody in Darfur. You are wasting your time. Miriam, witnesses were airlifted to Cairo. Witnesses were airlifted to Jamena, a neighboring country, coached, told you what to say about the events in Darfur. I and Thabo Mbeki I want to show you a picture. When we traverse this continent of Africa, how we managed to bring peace in Darfur. The peace in Darfur has been holding. Darfur is peaceful. The people who remain in Darfur have been protected. Why do we want to wake up the wounds? Would you like to wake up a war in the Second World War? Can we bring back the lives of those who died? No. Well, what we can do is to learn from the past, move on and heal, engage more to stop through a deterrent mechanism, which is justifiable, free, transparent, away from injustices that are committed by the International Criminal Court on a daily basis on Africans. My statement, therefore, there is no justice in the International Criminal Court. Looking at the basis of the cases that have gone there, we just punish African leaders. We just remove them. The only problem that Bashir has, why the Americans were interested in removing Bashir, was because at one time, Osama bin Laden was in Khartoum. And a student of international relations should listen to me, don't listen to quacks. Listen to facts, not fiction. The fight in Khartoum is because Osama bin Laden, the late who was killed and thrown in the sea, lived in Khartoum. American tomahawks, missiles landed on Khartoum, missed the house, the factory where Osama bin Laden was. And that is exactly what has made Bashir to be hated. But if you look back, before the Osama bin Laden, Khartoum was working so well with America. America was supporting Khartoum. Exports were doing very well. Production was so high. USAID agency Sudan was working hand in hand with the Americans. But what happened is when Bashir gave sanctuary to Osama bin Laden, is when they finally decided they will take on Bashir. Two, the cases of ICC are a trigger to the current situation. Any leader who takes over Sudan at the moment, Miriam, you have made a point there, and comes out and says we shall hand over ICC indictees, you will be overthrown again. What is the reason behind it? Why am I saying so? I'm saying so because Africa, the same soldiers who fought in Bashir regime in Darfur, are the people who committed some of the heinous crimes. What Bashir needs to say in the court, yes, he says I was the commander, but there were other junior commanders. And the junior commanders today are the ones who overthrew the government. Isn't it? They are still there. General Dugul is in charge of the operations. They have taken over power. Have you heard of another man announcing? There is no medium. Have you listened that there's a General Dugul? What did I tell you about my friend General Dugul? Dugul was the head of Janjaweed. Janjaweed was part and parcel of the problems of Darfur. He's my friend. You think he could allow himself to go and be fired in The Hague? 3, the question of Sudan case on ICC. Karim Khan needs to reinvestigate these cases. Because money was paid to Ocampo to indict people. And that will not go away until they tell whether the money was there or not. How can a PA of a chief prosecutor receive a total of $17 million? What were they for? That still hangs on until it is solved. Forget, there will be more. And the government, any government coming in the Khartoum, I predict now again, Miriam, any government coming to Khartoum which wants to send Bashir to The Hague will be overthrown. I rest my case there.
All right, Doc, thank you so much. Now, the other factors that could be external and perhaps could have contributed to what we see here today, because we know in the 2019 coup that happened, there are Arab countries that were alleged to have been involved, and that will be Egypt, UAE, and Saudi Arabia on one side, because they started reaching out to the army when the protest had initially started in Sudan, because they felt that Sudan was becoming very cozy with the arrivals that will be Turkey as well as Qatar, so they were not happy. So so they started seeing which country would have influence over Sudan. And in fact, there are reports that indicate that a country like Saudi Arabia was greatly involved in even funding those protests and removing former President Omar al-Bashir, because there's an intelligence official that used to work for Bashir after a while when Bashir discovered that he was a double agent for Saudi Arabia as well, and he was a Sudanese. Bashir fired him, and immediately the guy took off, went to Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia immediately gave him a nationality. And during the process of negotiations and mediations, can you imagine Saudi Arabia sent this guy back to Sudan to try to mediate during that time leading to the coup? So you can see, and could that still be a factor? Because we know countries like Egypt, UAE, and Saudi Arabia, they're led autocratically. And in a case like Egypt, where there used to be some semblance of democracy, we've seen how even the current president has come up very strongly against people who were trying to call for a more democratic space to be opened. And so that was the same thing, especially the civilian side was pushing for in Sudan. So could this be a factor, the Arab countries and their wars, and now could be at play still in Sudan, the proxy war? Samuel Tawish.
Before Tawish comes in, let me make that point well known. The truth here is this. Miriam, you are 100% correct on that point. Regional powers around the Red Sea are the part of the problem that we are going to receive, which will precipitate. Am I speaking good English here this morning?
Precipitate, yes.
Precipitate, yes. To the Horn of Africa, to Somalia. Believe me or not, again, I am giving you the facts. You can refuse, you can agree. If you don't, it's up to you. The same powers that are causing problems in Sudan. Remember Tigray. Who supports the Tigrayans? Who is supporting the Tigrayans? Sudan. Tigray, TPLF forces are being supported by Sudan and Egypt against Ethiopia because of the dam. Ethiopia equally has support, and it has brought in another Gulf state power which is calling itself half. One leg is in Europe, one leg is in the Arab world, another leg is in Satan. That is Turkey. And these are hard facts. If there's anybody who has any facts, tell me. Turkey is part of the Satan that we see in Europe. It claims to be in Europe, it claims to be in the Arab world, it claims to be sponsoring terrorism. It has gone to Libya. It has cut Libya in two. It is coming to Somalia with a fleet of ships, moving down towards the disputed maritime borders between Kenya and Somalia. If you delay too much, we shall find fleets and fleets of ships anchoring in the port of Mogadishu. In Mogadishu saying we are defending the territory of Somalia. So what do I say? What do we mean here? Regional, outside forces have played indeed a role, especially Saudi Arabia. If you look at the uniforms that are worn by terrorists in Cape Delgado, whom Kagame went in and finished them. Thank you very much, Kagame, for the good work you have done, Baba brother. Some of us have grown fat and we cannot fight anymore, like me. But we are here supporting you through strategy. Well done, the job that in Mozambique. You went there 2 weeks, finished this nonsense. Do you hear about the Cape Delgado anymore? We talk about globalization. Where is Cape Delgado? Is indeed part of the globalization? They wanted a war there. So this medium, in a nutshell, it is not only in Sudan alone. It is everywhere around the Horn of Africa, and it is coming. It will affect the Great Lakes region, because peace, if there is no peace in Khartoum, there will be no peace in Juba. Do you know that Sudan is the guarantor of the peace process of Juba? We still have the Abyei Peninsula. Medium, it's very complicated politics. We still have the Abyei Peninsula, where forces of neutral supposed to stand so that the oil pumps out. It's the richest oil area, the richest oil-rich area in the Africa, Abyei. We have not resolved it. The region, therefore, will collapse, will fall. Ethiopia is bombing Tigray. Somalia is dynamics changing. We have a problem in the region. The only solution is the United Nations Security Council to step in and stop the menace. Go back to African Union, but is African Union alive? If African Union can reduce us to handouts, Africans receiving handouts instead of fighting for the real thing, McCoy. Have you heard of the Rio McCoy? Wacha tukule Rio McCoy. We have been left to eat Rio half-baked McCoy. Mm-hmm. There you are, Miriam.
All right, thank you so much. Samuel Tawish, Arab politics, are they at play right now in Sudan?
Well, thank you so much, Miriam. And
Tawish, let me correct this friend of ours, James Bitoro. He doesn't know anything. He should shut up and advise us which civilian government is coming in Sudan. The civilian government will not come, Bitoro, and don't tell a lie to people. You literally know nothing about even a coup. When I told you 20 days ago that there will be a coup, you are even saying, how do you know? Now today your mouth is even dry. You can't even, wipe with your saliva. You are one of those on this show saying, oh, the coup won't happen. Shut up! Don't become an architect when you're a grave digger. When people are talking of importance of things in the region, don't just come that, oh, Bashir will be handed over to ICC. Well, atapitia kwako usikia wapi? Mr. James Bitoro, please, I know who you are. I've traced up all your links where you come from. And I don't want to expose your real name. So keep quiet and enjoy the program. You don't have anything more If you want to learn from a veteran who has had a gun and the politics together, and who has survived assassination attempts, who is a refugee, who has no state like me. I know where the shoe pains. You don't know. Thank you. Continue, Tawish.
All right. Okay, Tawish, go ahead.
Very well. Thank you so much, Miriam. Thank you, Dr. Masanga, for your submission. And indeed, Miriam, it looks like from the word go, there was a wider scheme really to make Sudan ungovernable by virtue of the fact that the former President Omar al-Bashir, having been, of course, dragged into ICC and the coming in of the new ICC chief prosecutor, Dr. Masanga had earlier on really raised misgiving and reservation about the coming in of the new ICC chief prosecutor, and even coming to Sudan, allegedly to want to begin, of course, doing investigation into the crimes committed allegedly by former President Omar al-Bashir. But be that as it may, Miriam, I think this calls for the United Nations Security Council to come in are much welcome, and I think it is the only probably way out in trying to bring back peace, stability, and some semblance rather of tranquility in Sudan as we speak today. The same has to be done, of course, in conjunction with the African Union. Much as Dr. Masanga David might not quite agree that the African Union really has any teeth to deal with the situations of such a nature by virtue of what they have been unable to do in the African continent. Today, as we speak, Ethiopia is going through that crisis that it's going through. So many African countries are going through a lot of turbulence and turmoil, but the African Union cannot step in and try to bring or restore peace and stability in those nations. So my view is that, Miriam, I think it is time that the UN Security Council comes in, of course, with the aid of the African Union, to try and see how we can find a solution to the crisis, the political crisis that we are having in Sudan today. Because it is not really in our pride to see Sudan go down the drain simply because of the power contestation, because there are people who feel like maybe it is time for a civilian administration, or is it time for the military administration? There are people even who feel the likes of Dr. David Masanga, the Pan-Africans, who believe it was wrong really to have Omar al-Bashir, one, ousted from power and being dragged into ICC. So coupled with all these factors, Miriam, it begs that maybe we have to go back to the drawing board and find a long-lasting solution, one that is not as punitive as or detrimental, one that will see even the supporters and those who have always believed in the presidency and the leadership of Omar al-Bashir being brought down on table, sit and have a negotiation on the way forward about what kind of leadership the people of Sudan really want. Because if we continue with the kind of things that are happening today, I can quite tell you, we may not have a solution by the end of the day. Each of the groups will be pulling strings on their side, and by the end of the day, of course, it is the people, the ordinary people of Sudan who will be losing. I submit, Miriam.
Okay, thank you. Now, Sharon, Tawish has said, and also Doctor said there earlier.
Want to run out, Miriam. Miriam, my sister, I want to run out.
Okay.
Tawish, I refer you to the report, investigative report on African Union on 25th of September, which I released. Hallelujah. I think before Friday, you as moderators read that report. And the rest of you. And Mr. Bitoro, pick the report from Pan-African Forum. They can put the website online. There's no problem there. Read the report and see whether there is what. Surely, Miriam, is the African Union surely left?
And Doc, before you leave, perhaps before I bring in Sharon now that you're leaving, we know that the Transitional Council was supposed to be there for 3 years, and that started 2019 in August. And we know in November, the process is supposed to be starting, where the military is supposed to be pulling back and allow the civilian side to start organizing for elections next year. And November is next month. So are you curious as to why we are coming towards November, where the military is supposed to be pulling back, and this is the time they decide to do what they're doing right now? So is there a possibility of a transitional process completing in Sudan, in short?
A possibility of transitional process?
Completing.
Where will it come from? They saw, Miriam, they saw the coup was coming. They saw November was coming for handover, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Next month.
They
Next
refused.
week. Next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was next week. How do you agree to hand over yourself to be slaughtered? These civilians will lock Mr. General Duguru. They will lock them. That NGO Prime Minister of George Soros. These are George Soros Open Society Foundation gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. My friend, in Africa, people don't learn. The Prime Minister of Sudan is George Soros Part 2. He has never worked anywhere except Open Society Foundation, which gives him the funding, the dollars, the what. How do you expect him to be sympathetic to the generals? It is done. It's done. They knew, the soldiers knew, they saw that if the transition takes place, we shall be handed over like rats. Ingia, those that have fallen in water. Have you ever seen a rat that falls in water making any move? So, Miriam, it is, please, and the panel, the whole thing of coups benefit these external forces. America at the moment is not interested. France, today as we speak, Turkey has expelled the French ambassador. What has Matanga been telling you? What has Matanga been telling you? You are leaving them here. Tomorrow, Boniface Mwangi is arranging for his house to be rebuilt. I wish I had a house to throw stones and then somebody comes to rebuild it. Another one is saying he's misadvising Miguna. He's not friendly to Miguna. He has never been a friend of Miguna. He's telling him, you come, I'm coming to pick you. Utapitia wapi? Utapitia wapi? There are roadblocks everywhere. Instead of giving a man advice, like some of us will fly to Canada and I tell our friend, I don't need a visa to go to Canada. No, I'm going to talk to that man. My friend is my friend. He's my friend. For him to fill in a passport and go home. Wachana hiyo mbitu. Don't bring in Mutunga. What can Mutunga explain here? Mutunga can only explain to David Indi. Sitaki kusema maneno hapa inaleta fujo. They don't know. So, Miriam, the soldiers were waiting for the week is next week. How can they give a chance for transfer? Unaenda, ulisikia wapi? Huyo Prime Minister, in fact, the latest call that has just come, he's now under safe custody. Thank you very much. Miriam, continue with the program. I am off. I wish I was near River Nile. I would begin washing my legs. Woohoo! Let God keep me one day. We shall be there. Thank you very much, Miriam. Continue with the program. This is a Monday morning. This is Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting from the headquarters in Nairobi and here in Mombasa. Miriam, do you see my new boat?
Bye-bye, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you. You go ahead. Thank you for the show. I'm still listening quietly from the background.
Your boat is nice. Now, Sharon Gitonga, I know I've even forgotten the question I'd asked you there earlier, but perhaps if you could, judging from what we saw happen in the first coup that took place in 2019 and how the Arab countries were really involved and even sponsored. Initially, that sat in different, in opposite fences, but later on they came together and worked towards removing Omar al-Bashir. Could that still be at play, and what could be the reason why they're still involved in Sudan?
Thank you very much, Miriam, and Tawish and Dr. Matanga's sentiments, and I highly agree with them when they talk about, regional powers being a force to reckon when it comes to the frequent coups that we've been having. But then allow me to diverge a little bit. As much as we talk about political instability and the constant pressing security issues that have been invading Sudan, I also try to look at economic crises that have been as a result of, I believe, the highest, level of crime that we've been having in Khartoum. When you look at Sudan, I believe there are very high, rates of unemployment. When you look at, the high, massive inflation, you talk about illiteracy, you talk about fiscal deficits, and poverty, which is on, is quite alarming when it comes to, Sudan. And I believe when a country is, or rather when people are poor, it becomes so easy for all these forces to easily manipulate them. So I believe there's also the issue of economic crisis, which has been also high on the rise, and hence ensuring that when people are poor, so these other forces are easily are able to manipulate. So I believe also the crisis that faces Sudan economically also has a very big role to play when it comes to these constant coups that we've been having over and over.
Okay. All right. And during the 2019 protest, Samuel Tawish, part of the security forces went to protect the civilians. We saw how that played out. And there are other security forces that were still allied and were still loyal to Omar al-Bashir, who went, attacking the civilians, and other forces who were protecting the civilians, opened fire and actually killed 2 security forces from the other side. And so there were concerns of division even within the security apparatus in the country. And the ones who are protecting the civilians, they are of the low-ranking officers, and I think younger, security officials there. And so even right now, there has been division in security forces in Sudan. What danger does this portend for the country of Sudan? And if not handled very carefully, is Sudan likely will Sudan likely be one of the statistics we'll be, reading in the continent of Africa about another country that has been plagued with a civil war if things are not handled carefully?
Thank you, Miriam. You must have noticed even in the latest coup that you are having in Sudan today, away from even the division in the security apparatus itself, even the government itself, really, the government that has been there or that is there is actually divided right in the middle. The civilian part of the government is actually condemning the military takeover. Even when you hear the spokesperson who is coming out, even against the arrest and detention, the house arrest of the prime minister in Sudan, I mean, it quite tells you clearly that there are 2 warring factions in as far as this particular stalemate is concerned in Sudan, and it's more of the civilian government has been sidelined. Because there's a feeling within the military ranks, probably those in the high rank in the military, who feel like if there will be a total takeover of the civilian as the head of government in Sudan, then maybe they will be in hot soup. Dr. Masanga has equally alluded to that fact, that it's not possible for the military just to hand over government apparatus or government machinery to the civilian administration, because they fear they could be what I'll term as a revisiting of maybe what happened during the ouster of Omar al-Bashir. So in itself, Miriam, the question you're asking as to the level of threat it poses to the stability and peace in Sudan, it's very dangerous indeed. It is something that is so dicey. It is something that threatens the stability of Sudan. That you have people in the military, high ranking for that matter, actually giving conflicting reports, going separate ways in as far as this similar coup is concerned, the same way they went separate ways, giving different information during the ouster of Omar Bashir in 2019. It does tell you that this military is divided right in the middle, Miriam. And this is something that is very, very dangerous when you have the military and even the security apparatus being divided on matters politics, on matters governance, when they're supposed to be a political medium. So in itself is a very dangerous thing. It's quite interesting to see how Sudan is going to navigate its way out of this particular stalemate moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Sharon, the dangers of a divided security apparatus in a country like Sudan right now, and what that could mean even to the entire region. Okay, Sharon is not there. So before we go, Samuel Tawish, of course, there has been coups that have happened in the recent past that has been led with the military. We know Ghana, not Ghana, but Guinea, we have Mali, and other countries that have, and we've seen how that has worked out. When they're looking at what is happening right now in Sudan, what do you think they're thinking where they are, the military juntas in Kenya and, say, Mali?
Miriam, if I got you right, I think it's a very bad precedent we are actually setting as a continent, and a very bad example we are setting to other African nations that we are having military takeovers and military coups in our nations today, because the military in the first place are supposed to be apolitical. They are supposed to be the safeguards that the civilians really resort to when maybe the regimes that are in power fail to actually live up to the aspirations of the people. But when you have the military now being at the forefront, instituting these coups like we are seeing in Sudan, we are seeing in other countries like Mali, you've mentioned, and other places in the continent of Africa, this is something that is really very, very dangerous. And if it's being borrowed, if it's going to be borrowed, because as we speak today, Miriam, how did we find ourselves where we are today in as far as the Sudan case is concerned? It's because they have borrowed a leaf from the other nations that carried out successful military coups. So are we likely not going to see more of African countries really take to that trajectory? The answer is no. We are likely going to see most of the African countries really to take that particular route, especially when you have Western power countries and some elements who are actually the perpetrators of regime change will be taking advantage of such kind of loopholes and fragility really to institute regime change and coups in the African continent. So indeed, Miriam, it's not a very good precedent we are setting. It's not a very good example we are setting as African nation. If all the African countries really are going to go into that trajectory, then we will be going down the drain. We will not be having anything called democracy, or even people having the will and their will being reflected really to select or elect a government that they so wish, Miriam, I submit.
Okay, thank you so much, Samuel Tawish. Thank you, Sharon Gitonga. And of course, the latest from Sudan is that security forces in Sudan have moved Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok to an unknown location after he refused to issue a statement in support of an ongoing coup, the Information Ministry said, as soldiers also rounded up several members of the country's civilian leadership. And this is a developing story, and I shall be back with the latest at 3 p.m. East African time, when I'll be bringing you the latest news from the continent of Africa. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, thank you, Dr. Matsanga, who left the conversation just a few moments ago. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.